This is Amy Brenneman, and you're listening to the 100th episode of You Might Know Her From with Damien and Anne.
Wait, ready?
Yeah.
Wait. Oh.
Get it right. Oh!
Hey.
Folks, welcome to the landmark 100th episode of You Might Know Her From. Yes, that is champagne that Damien just popped. It is the Juliette, which is a good omen because it's my mother's name. So thank you, Damien, for procuring that today.
I'll drink that one because it's all bubbles.
I always put my pinky in it to stop the bubbles. Somebody taught me that as a bartender, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to put my pinky in your drink.
Cheers. Salud.
Cheers, baby. Oh, that is delicious. This is what you get when you spend money on champagne. Who knew? We're old now. That's what happens. You're like, oh, that tastes delicious, actually.
Oh my gosh, folks, I can't tell you about getting old. I mean, it is hard to get old, but we are here today and we're feeling youthful because now we are 100 episodes old and we're so happy that you've been along the journey with us here on You Might Know Her From.
With Damien and Anne.
And I am Damien.
I am Anne, and if you don't know the show, this is our podcast where we shoot the shit with each other. We talk about our aging bodies. We talk about the ins and outs of JoJo Siwa, and we interview an actress each episode. Hopefully someday JoJo Siwa is going to say yes to us.
I have to say it's a little disarming. We're recording in person, which we sometimes do, but haven't done that much really since lockdown.
Right.
And I'm used to like looking at like an outline that you write us on Zoom, and it's like, and now I feel like, oh, this is like this is when we used to forget to say the name of the show.
Because we're like making deep eye contact and like talking about falling downstairs.
Exactly.
It has been such a wild, beautiful ride. So thank you for staying with us. If you're a latecomer, if you're a newcomer, we are so thrilled to be here. There's been a lot that's happened over the course of these 4 seasons. I mean, in the last 2.5 years that we've been doing this podcast, you got a dog.
Yeah, she's our intern now.
She's sleeping at my feet. Thank you, Ronnie. I think the biggest thing that's happened to me in the last 2.5 years is I started taking a digestive enzyme and it changed my life. I don't know that I have anything that's like the equivalent of a dog, but together we have hit some like huge milestones. We've interviewed tons of people from the L Word. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we can name them. Guinevere Turner.
Heather Matarazzo.
Laurel Holloman.
Tammy Lynn Michaels.
Sapita Mwafi. Patricia Velasquez. Ooh, one of my faves. Patricia's interview was so good.
Yes, that was a good one. We've also interviewed people that we like long pursued. You know, I do this thing. It's like if you have ever dated me, you know I do it. Where it's like
hopefully we have listeners that have dated you.
Oh my God.
I think we obviously do.
Yeah, we do.
We know of a few.
Yeah. But you know, like I pursue pretty aggressively if I'm into something. And so I think it has served me well in this podcast, not in my dating life. So we also scored people that we like long pursued who they were like, wow, you are persistent. Or like, who said like, I appreciate your tenacity. And then we finally got them.
Yeah.
Who was that? We're going to come back to that. But that we definitely did that with Shreya Aghdashloo.
Tashina Arnold. Oh my God. We had been pursuing her for so long.
Tashina Arnold, Leslie Ann Warren, Mary Kay Place.
We've had some people that have like changed. Like one of the things that we've loved so
Denny Dillon.
Oh my God!
She
Denny
said you
Dillon.
Sure are tenacious, and I said thank you, Denny.
Yeah, she didn't even say it with malice. You know, sometimes it's said with like an undercurrent of rage and frustration. She said it with love, I think. Yeah, lots of lesbians on this podcast. Also, one of the shows that we loved most over the last like 5 years was Abby McEnany's Work in Progress. We landed her for the pod. I just feel like we've had a wealth of treasures and things that we've discovered along the way. People whose work we discovered through the podcast, like people that we've been obsessed with for years. So, oh my God, Dinah Manoff and Lainey Kazan. Like we literally have just had people that have been in our consciousness since we were young. And so if you're our kind of people, you're here for the right reasons, please go back and dig into those archives. We are here at 100 episodes with someone that is very important to both of us. And that is, of course,
Amy Brenneman. Oh my goodness. I mean, folks, if you've been listening, you know that we loved Judging Amy. We grew up with it. I watched it. It was like a family show that I would watch when I got home from like play practice. I would like watch it with my mom and my dad and my sister. And it was like a family staple. And then I would tape it when I would like be at play practice. I had like my VCR with my timer. I think it was on through high school and college. Is that right? I think I watched it in college as well.
I discovered it in college. I think it was in reruns on TNT. It would be back-to-back episodes. And so I would set my like VHS to EP, which for you young people, if we have any young people listening, means extended play. It means you got 6 hours. The quality was lower, but you got 6 hours on that tape.
That's what you needed though for the stuff that you were taping. It was like, oh, this is my Wednesday night tape. This is my Thursday night tape, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, so I discovered it in college. I loved it. It's like where Tyne Daly came to me. It's like introduced me to Amy Brenneman, and then of course like discovered NYPD Blue, and then her film career. Obsessed with so many pieces of it, especially something that is a shared love for Damien and I, and that is of course
things you can tell just by looking at her. I filmed, I'm going to call it a short film myself over the summer, who knows, and who knows time anymore. But I was obsessed with this genre of type of film, and we talk about it a little bit, but it's just like when they have like 25 actresses in a film and they're all like Emmy and Oscar winners, and it's just like, here's a script, you're all connected somehow, go.
We had Roma Mafia on the show as well, who played Holly Hunter's nurse in that movie. What I didn't remember when we interviewed her, which is unfortunate, is that she was Glenn Close's nurse, and Glenn Close was the abortionist in the film. And I thought, what depth we have here.
Anyway, we are just so glad and honored to be doing this work. We are so grateful to the women and non-binary folk who have said yes to us and who have been on this show. And we look forward to keep doing the good things. So we hope if you like it, that you'll leave us a review in the Apple Podcast app. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts, if whether it's Apple or Spotify or Podchaser or any of those other places. Just make sure you're locked in, following us, and please give us that written review, because it really truly, and like I don't even understand how, but it really does truly help us keep doing this thing.
You might know her from The Leftovers,
Private Practice,
Heat,
Fear,
Daylight,
Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her,
NYPD Blue,
and
Judging Amy. When I tell you this is the thrill of a literal lifetime, we are finally here with actress, producer, and Emmy nominee Amy Brenneman. Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, that's such an exciting intro.
Well, we are longtime fans, but we have a lot to dig into. But we're going to start with the landmark HBO series, The Leftovers, which you starred in. And I actually binged in preparation for this interview, and I have to say it's like really a mind fuck to be watching during the pandemic. Even though it's not about a pandemic, it seems like the parallels are very real. So for our listeners that aren't familiar, season 1 begins 3 years after an event called the sudden departure, where 2% of the population inexplicably disappears. Your character Lori leaves her family and joins the Guilty Remnant, a chain-smoking group who wear all white and don't speak. So how, as an actor, did you prepare for this role, where basically you were required to sort of be a silent star for the entire first season?
I put myself utterly in Damon Lindelof's hands. You know, we have a real thing that happened, which is when we sat down to talk about it. And I had never really worked out of town. My kids were younger, and that was something I didn't really look forward to doing. But, you know, the business is what it is. But he said, here are the 3 reasons why you shouldn't take this job. And I said, okay. He said, you have no dialogue. I will not allow you to wear any makeup. And it works out of town. And I was like, I'm in. I'm totally in. Everything about the Leftovers was organic. And so, you know, when people enjoy the show, I always am so moved by that. And also think, you know, you watched, more than anything I've been involved in, you watched us not know what we were doing. Usually it's like, we didn't know what we were doing. And then we threw out the first couple episodes. But the whole thing was feeling our way into the next thing we wanted to express, quite literally. You know, Lori was very underwritten. She had no lines, right? So I would get these scripts and it would say, you know, Lori shows up and she's smoking and no one knows what she's thinking. And I realized it was like othering. She was the other, right? So like the other characters were looking at her, and I would call them up and I was like, well, I need to know what I'm thinking. So he and we were shooting in New York that season, and I would just call him up on the phone and we would just riff. Really, we sort of made it up together, very much together. So it became very like one long meditation practice.
This is interesting to me because like Damon Lindelof also created Lost, which I watched, you know, from its origin to the end of the series. And You know, I loved the show, but there was a lot of pushback at the end of the series of like, did they know what they were doing the whole time? So that's interesting. So basically, he didn't have a vision for the end of the series when he started. It was a collaboration.
You know, he was very haunted by the end of Lost, which I was happy to say. He's like, I have PTSD. I was like, I didn't watch it. Like, this is a new thing. Let it go, you know?
Yeah.
He definitely knew that he wanted to be very conscious of the way he ended it. Not just because fans would be mad at him, but because he as an artist wanted to do it a different way. So that's why it's like, you know, do you want to have a fourth season or know how you're going to end in the third? He's like, I'll take the second option, you know, so he could really craft it. I think, you know, I should actually specify that a little bit more. Emotionally, we always knew what we were doing, which was we were exploring grief and living in mystery. We always knew what that was. Now, where we got to, and it's something even in the first season, not in a critical way, but in a you know, my artist writer brain was like, you know, there's a lot of people grieve and a lot of ways people deal with mystery. And the first season, as much as I loved it, was very much a dirge. I mean, and I mean that in a medieval sense, you know, but in grief and when people are freaking out, they also crack jokes. They also have affairs. They also buy cars. You know, they do lots of things. So I think that as we went forward into season 2 and 3, I think, expressed more fully the range of human response to living with the inexplicable.
The show isn't religious, but it is about the balance of spirituality and nihilism that comes into play when life hands you something completely inexplicable. You studied comparative religion at Harvard, so was this show in any way like of particular interest to that part of your brain?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. I also you know, when you're saying how did you prepare for it, and I was like, oh my God, this is so different. I've never seen anything like this in TV. Da, 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 da. And I was like, hold on. I was literally a liturgical dancer at one point. I'm a modern dancer. I've actually performed quite a bit without language. And in fact, I really like to. So once I realized like, oh, on stage, you can have a character, for instance, a ballet dancer who doesn't use language. And we don't, it's like, oh, that's great. I realized we don't see that as much on screen. We don't see that as much in television, but removing language and getting into more archetypal symbolism and gesture and stillness. Yeah, definitely. I was like, hey, I know this. You know, I studied, you know, Buddhist liturgy. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Amy, please bear with us. We really have a lot here. You, of course, created, executive produced, and starred in one of our very favorite shows and frequent topic of this podcast, which, of course, is Judging Amy. We talk about it a lot, so this section, just buckle up. So the show ran from 1999 through 2005, and you play Amy, a family court judge who is managing life as a divorced single mother alongside her own social worker mother, played by Tyne Daly. The show is based on your real-life mother's profession as a Connecticut state superior judge. Can you talk about how and why you pitched this series, and also the choice to make the judge's name Amy?
Yeah. Well, the second question, I have no imagination. I'm serious. Especially when it comes to developing, which I don't do all the time because I'm mostly an actor for hire, although I do like producing and creating TV shows. But like literally, it was like, well, I'm going to play it. So the placeholder was Amy. And in fact, the daughter was little Amy. I was like, well, at a certain point, we need a new name, you know? And then when Barbara Hall came on to brilliantly render the thing, it just never went away. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I didn't, you know, it's like I'm the most narcissistic performer ever. You know, it really was my mom's idea because I had, you know, come from theater. Then I started doing television, NYPD Blue, a couple other things. Then I was doing movies, so I hadn't really done television for a while. But my mom, because she was, you know, well, she's a consumer of television and stuff, and she also, because I was now involved in that world, she was like, I love that Law and Order show. Isn't that, can you be on Law and Order? And I was like, oh my God, like I don't want to be on Law and Order. Like I'm into, because also I intuit, not, first of all, Law and Order is great, but for what I like to do, which is like, I want to see somebody at home. I want to see them like, you know, having a terrible love affair. I want to see a little bit more than just their job, you know? But she said for years, she said, nobody's done a show about juvenile justice. So, and I was like, you know, shut up, you're my mom, whatever, you're an idiot. And then I was making a birthday video for her with my husband, Brad Silberling, who's also a director and, does this sort of thing as well. And we spent 2 days in the Hartford court, and people, social workers, lawyers, probation officers, sheriffs, stenographers, they're all like, hey, happy birthday, Judge Brennaman. And I'm sitting there going like, she's right. This is a great environment because it's very lively. It's very gallows humor. And the stakes are really, really high. Mm-hmm. But the personal piece of it, which was more my contribution was, at that time and still, there's a lot of kind of hackneyed, I think, language around like trailblazers, right? And it's like people that haven't done something before. It's like the first woman, blah, 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 the first black, blah, 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 Well, what if you're the daughter of a trailblazer, as I am, actually? You know what I mean? And so you have that. It's not like you have a meek mother, just as almost the feminist realm, like you have a meek mother and then you're the gal that was raised in the 70s and 80s. And, it's like my mother was in the first class of women at Harvard Law School. She was the second female judge on the state of Connecticut. Man, I have a big time trailblazing mother. And that's really interesting, too. So that was sort of the piece. But honestly, it was a little bit DOA until Barbara Hall came along. Like we had a couple of other writers that just couldn't crack it. And it was really her spark. You need somebody to get it.
Mm-hmm. Is the ice cream, the way y'all eat ice cream a lot at the end of a lot of episodes, was that like a Brennaman thing? Is that
that's a Tyne thing. That's a little bit of a Barbara thing. Tyne is brilliant in a bazillion ways, but Tyne was never happier than if she was actually stuffing a turkey there was actually stuff, like we were actually eating, we were actually cleaning things, we were actually, it really does make your acting much better. That's why The Leftovers was so hard, right? All I had was the cigarette. So right. Of the food stuff, I feel like was Tyne's sense of life and embodiment and all the amazing stuff that she is.
On that front, we talked to Jillian Armenante on this show, and she told us that when Donna was giving birth, the script actually had Dan Futterman's character birthing the baby, and Tyne Daly stepped forward and was like, not on this show are we going to have a man help birth this child, and she was like, I'm going to do it. Is that true, and is it also representative of, like, Tyne Daly on that set?
Yeah, both. I love that you talked to Jillian. She's my lovey. I don't even remember. That's probably true. Dan was or the character Vincent was in the script at one point. But Tyne's sense of actual second wave feminism. Like I feel like I'm third wave feminism, or I don't know what I am. But she would always, sometimes in a, it's like loosen up time. Boys are okay time. Sometimes if you like it. But yeah, she was all about female allyship. Always, and how that's expressed, because you can talk about it all you want, but what does it actually look like? And she, Tyne for me was not only, she was a mentor to me in so many ways, including bringing my child at 2 weeks old and having to nurse in the makeup chair and not really wanting to, work that soon after having a baby, and just having no idea of where to look for guides. And then there's Tyne Daly, and she was like, I did it too. When on Cagney and Lacey, she was one of the first. So yeah. I was following in some pretty big footsteps.
Tyne's one of our favorites, and this show was like my introduction to her because I didn't know Cagney and Lacey, and I didn't know her like storied theater career. We were trying to figure out the timeline earlier. You were in New York prior to going to LA to do NYPD Blue. Like, did you see Tyne on stage? Like, did you see her do Mama Rose and Gypsy? Were you in New York then?
No, I didn't really. I knew her from Cagney and Lacey and from, but when we were looking for the person to play Maxine, and we knew it would be somebody, we'd offer it to somebody awesome. So we knew we weren't going to audition too many ladies, but in the interim, Barbara honestly just wanted to hear her scenes, so this can sometimes happen too. So you kind of bring in people and they know it's like, okay, I probably won't get this part, but I'll meet the folks. So let's see, I was in my mid-30s at the time, and so we were looking at, Tyne she's only like 18 years older than me, I think. So we were looking at women, let's say in their 50s and maybe early 60s, and I hadn't worked in LA that much, and I was still very much like basing, I wanted it to smell real, in central Connecticut and what that looked like. Anyway, these ladies would come in that had too much work done or smelled like vanity in some way, and yes, I was like, yes. Oh shit, like we're not going to find her. Like this isn't going to work. And then when Tyne came in for a meeting, and she actually was really sweet, because when she remembers it, she's very embarrassed of how brash and bitchy she was that day, although I was so charmed. But she's very professional, and she doesn't like to be late, and and somebody had told her the wrong place to park or something. So she comes in like sweaty and menopausal, and she was like, and I'm like loving, I'm like, oh, she's here, Maxie. And to this day, she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was like, you have no idea. I was so happy. You were just like, so who she is. I mean, she does not lie. She does not protect herself. And I was like, that's my scene partner.
Mm. So Amy's best friend on the show is her court services officer, Bruce, played the very sexy Richard T. Jones. And the two of you had such great chemistry. And there was always this sort of like unspoken will they, won't they. But did that develop over time, or was it always sort of part of the plan? And do you have any regrets about never having them get together actually on the show?
Well, I have a little bit of intel on that. The vibe developed over time, for sure. I mean, and Richard T. and I just had this like thing, and he just is delicious, and, you know, such a great yin and yang. Like Amy Gray was sort of like in her head and neurotic, and he's just, yeah. Well, you know, I don't feel like I'm telling tales out of school, because he's sort of been discredited, but Les Moonves did not want an interracial romance. And that is the truth. You heard it here. Oh God!
So I guess it's not surprising to hear, but horrible.
Yeah. So there was one smooch that happened literally in a dream. So we got away with that. Right. And then my mother actually was. This isn't the racial piece, but she was always very protective of, like, a judge just would not hook up with a subordinate. Like, you're kind of losing the whole shebang. And I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. So there was, I think it was like in the 5th season, Bruce loses his job or steps away. I can't remember the plot line, but he was not actually working in the court. So, you know, and Amy Gray was falling apart, as she always was. So I come to him for, you know, late night glass of wine, have a chat, we kiss, we separate, look at each other, kiss again. And that's the way the episode ended. So I think when I saw it broadcast, the last moment is we kind of kiss, we separate, and then it ends. We don't kiss again. And I was furious. And I was like, hold up. That is not what... So I never do this, but I said to Hart, like, I'm really upset. And what you... I know. You know, I think I had seen the final cut. What I thought I did see that aired. It's like, this is what's going to be on the air. And then what I saw on the air was different. And that almost never happened. And I was upset. And Hart said, I wanted to keep you out of this, but you had no idea how much we had to fight even to keep that one kiss. They wanted to jettison the whole moment.
Oh my God.
And that was less. That was 100% this one guy who's now bye-bye.
He's garbage.
Yeah.
We can say it now. He's garbage. Yeah. Also, it was like, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't excuse it if it's 1965, but it was like 2004.
Oh, no. And like, I always think of Tyne. So Tyne, who's, you know, the father of her children's African-American, she won an Emmy. She won a couple Emmys, I think, for Cagney and Lacey. And in like mid-80s, right? Yeah. She was pregnant with Alexandra, her youngest child. Pregnant there with George. She wins. She goes to kiss her husband. On the broadcast, they cut away before she kissed her actual husband. Oh, yeah. Like, she was like, oh, no, don't tell me anything new. But that's the story on that.
Oh, my God. Okay. So another specific that we were sort of invested in is that Dan Futterman played your brother Vincent, and he left the show after season 3, and he was sort of pseudo-replaced by your cousin, played by Kevin Ram. And Kevin was on the show for a few seasons, but then Futterman came back for the final season. What was the story behind that? Like, did Dan Futterman have other jobs? Was that just sort of par for the course in TV?
Oh, I love you guys. You guys really want to. Yeah, Danny was a little bit unsatisfied with Vincent, but to be honest with you, he fell in love with his now wife, Anya. They've been together forever. Anya lived in New York. I mean, it was just life, you know, and that's what you do get into on a series that you don't get into in a movie when you're done in 4 months. I mean, it's really like, okay, that was what that was. And then Kevin came in, but we always loved Dan, you know, the door was always very, very open. And so he came back. I can't remember if I think Anya came back out. They're writers together. They cracked In Treatment, the first season of In Treatment together.
Oh, that's okay. Right.
And Danny, that last season of Judging Amy, he was like excited because he had written this small indie called Capote.
Right.
And he's like showing me some footage. I was like, that looks really good. That small movie.
Good luck with that, Dan.
So I feel like, series, I mean, it's funny. My friend Kate Walsh just went back on Grey's and did a couple episodes. I think when you leave on good terms, when the series is good, when the writer is smart, as Barbara Hall is, to not kill somebody off, it really can be this place. And it's very satisfying for viewers who are invested, when people do come back. And so it feels very kind of jarring at the time, like they're leaving the show. It's like, yeah, give it a couple years. You never know. Like, somebody will come
and
back.
like in Shondaland, you can always come back as a ghost. So.
Oh my God. I mean, Shondaland, I'm just like waiting for the call,
Right. I don't know. It feels, to revisit it with fresh eyes as an older person, it holds up so well. I hope people go back and watch it. It's one of our favorite shows. It's very important to both of us.
Oh,
Absolutely.
That's so sweet. I'm so glad. That makes me feel so happy. Did you track the pregnancies? Can you track my rising and falling?
We were talking about this. Damien was trying to figure that out.
Because you miscarried on the show, and I was like, was that a real pregnancy that was
and then
I felt really complicated by it.
I know. So the dirt on that was, so the very end of the second season, I was very pregnant with Charlotte. And then I came back. And then in between Charlotte and Bodhi, I did have a miscarriage. And it was a really interesting experience. And I thought, I don't really see too many stories about this. And so we told that story. So, and while we were shooting that, happily, I did get pregnant with Bodhi. So there was a time when Amy Gray was pregnant and I wasn't, and then I was, and she miscarried. And,
Fascinating.
There was a lot of gestation there.
Yeah.
But then you did have Adrian Pasadar's child, right? Or no? I can't remember.
No, I didn't.
You didn't have his kid on the show. Okay.
No.
That was the miscarriage, right?
That was the miscarriage.
That was the miscarriage. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you guys break up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Oof,
No, I had
we're
Brad
diving
Silverling's.
in.
I actually had Brad Silverling's trial.
Fair. That's good for you. Good for you.
It worked better that way.
2 years after Judging Amy, you joined the Grey's Anatomy spinoff, Private Practice. Can you talk about what it was like to go from a show where you're number one on the call sheet, you're the creator, you're an EP, then you go to this sort of zeitgeisty ensemble piece in the Shondaland universe? Like, was that a welcome relief at that point in your career?
Yeah, I mean, it was confusing, but here's what I will say, and it's interesting now that, recently with the IA, with the union contract thing, people talking more honestly about the hours that we work in television, and being a single lead on a TV show is an inappropriate amount of work for a new mother. I knew it. I went in with no children and I came out with 2. And I was like, I cannot be away from my children 18 hours a day, which is really what it is. And I really I wasn't burned out because I left Judging Amy in such a beautiful way. But, there was my daughter, I was getting her situated with services. I had this new baby. I was like, oh my gosh, if I never, I was like, maybe I'm Princess Grace. Maybe I'm done. And I don't know what, but I was like, I'm really going to wait until I really have that pull, and because I'd been so not been able to be at home as much as I wanted. The balance was off. So I'm like, I'm just gonna be home, see what I see. And I remember being home, and Sandra Oh is an old buddy of ours, my husband and I. And so she was like, I'm on this new show and Grey's Anatomy. And I remember, although this was maybe a year later, and I was home nursing Bodhi. I was just hanging around all the time. And I remember watching, it was the season of Grey's where remember Denny?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, very familiar.
And I remember thinking, really as a creator, a little bit as a performer, but as a creator, I was like, those performers are really happy because they get to be tragic, they get to be sexy, they get to be funny. That's what I got to do in Judging Amy, and I will never do, I'm just solving crime. Like once you've had that and you get the fullness, it's hard to go back. Yeah. So I was like, okay, note to self, that's interesting. And I was because I just had that single lead thing, I was like, what would it be like to be in an ensemble and have a day off a week or 2? So I was super happy to get that gig. I mean, that said, and I will also say, it was a really unusual cast because most of us had been number one on a call sheet. Tyne Daly, Tay Diggs, Audra, we were all these thoroughbreds that really wanted a kind of more balance in our life. And Shonda was such a great culture mover. So that was all cool. And then it took a little adjusting because I was like, what? Like, I'm not at the center of the universe all the time. Like, But then the brilliance of what Shonda writes is that, you have times where your storyline is not in the forefront, but when it is, you are at the center of the universe. So it's not like you're always playing supporting. It sort of revolves in this pretty job share-y kind of way. Yeah. So, and I ended up making truly some of the best friends of my life. And I tasted what it was like to have a better balance between family and work. And that was no small thing.
I have to be honest in that I was more of a private practice person than a Grey's Anatomy person. I don't know how that came about. Probably because I was a fan of Judging Amy, honestly. It's coming to me now. But in season 2, one of my favorite things I've ever seen, an unhinged woman breaks into your house, injects you with a tranquilizer, and cuts your baby out of your womb while you are still conscious. You're talking her through it. It is something else. So whatever you want to tell us about that experience, like, are days like that on set so intense, or are they like kind of silly because the whole thing is so outrageous?
No, they're pretty intense. I mean, that actress is so wonderful, and she and I really trusted each other. I mean, they can be a lot of different things, and some of it is like, what's the vibe of the person you're working with? Yeah, I mean, we came home from the table read of the season finale, and Brad's like, "How is it?" And I'm like, "Well, they're all in a rom-com, and I'm like in a Quentin Tarantino movie, like I'm like way over here." You know what I mean? So you just sort of go with it. I mean, it's really high drama, but God damn it. I mean, that Shonda Rhimes, and now with Netflix, I mean, it's funny. I feel so really blessed to have this experience where, I mean, this happened to me yesterday. Like a 65-year-old woman came up and she was like, "What have you been in?" Or no, she said, "My friends want to know, like, are you an actress?" And I literally said, this is so bad, but I was like, "Are they men or women?" Because if they're men, I'm going to go with Heat and Leftovers pretty much. And NYPD Blue, if they're older. Yeah. If they're women my age, around my age, it's like Judging Amy, or older for Tyne. But like, I get these 13-year-old girls who are watching Private Practice for the first time, and they're like, "I can't believe what just happened." I was like, "It happened 10 years ago, but okay." But the way Shonda, and I guess it is that, and I mean this in a very complimentary way, that soap opera thinking.
Totally.
Where she gets audiences to love these characters, and therefore to love the actors, because there's very little, it's hard for people to distinguish. Yeah. But that event hooked people into Violet forever. I mean, it's like crazy.
Ian was like, "You don't remember this?" And I was like, "No, I think I blocked it out." She was like, "All right, we're making martinis and watching that." And like that.
It was wild.
As mentioned, like, that cast was full of theater people, like Audra McDonald, Taye Diggs, Tyne Daly. Like, who was your buddy on that set? And also, was it weird that Tyne Daly was one of your love interests because he is Tyne's brother?
It was a little weird. I mean, Timmy, because I'd known Timmy for years. I got very wonderfully absorbed into the Daly crew, and would do, actually I would because Timmy at that point was still sort of based in Vermont, but yes, of course, I was like one click away from being his sister. And I remember him like knocking on my trailer door whenever that was, season 2 or 3, and he had this little look on his face. He's like, "I just heard something." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Shonda's going to make us a couple." I was like, "Oh my God, this is going to be so weird." The first time we kissed, we really dug it. I was like, "Wow, that was a delight." Like, that was like, we never, we were always very platonic, and then we every once in a while would smooch, and that was hilarious. We were all really, really good friends, honestly. I mean, one of my best friends to this day is Paul Adelstein. So that was, in fact, I have a house in Martha's Vineyard. He was visiting us, which he's done before. And we were coming back from a party, and I was driving, and it was like 2 a.m, and he's like chatting up a storm. And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh my God, it's Cooper and Violet. It's real life Cooper and Violet." I was like, it is actually. But then working with Taye was also a delicious thing in so many ways. One reason is that he's like the biggest nerd, biggest heart, biggest whatever, and brings women, like grown women, get around him and stutter and stammer because he's very, very beautiful, and like he smells really good because he coconut. I don't know why. The whole package is very like delectable. Yeah. So I remember like having this meeting with this woman from this international feminist organization, like really, really smart, really heavy. And my lunch break was done. And I was like, do you want to come on the set? And she was like, absolutely. And Tay comes around. I was like, oh my God, Tay, you just have it going on.
Yeah. Okay, so one of your first big roles was as police officer Janice LaCalci on the 90s police drama NYPD Blue. So Janice had this romance with David Caruso's John Kelly, as well as, she had these mob ties, and those things fueled much of the plot for the first 2 seasons. Allegedly, we read that the character was written out because they didn't think they could keep a murderous cop on the series, which, LOL. Did you know your full character arc at the jump, and how did you find out that, after this whole big zeitgeisty 2 seasons that you were going to get written off?
I know, it's funny, isn't it? Because now that would be a selling point for a series regular.
Right.
I knew, again, a little bit it's a funny thing to compare, but it's a little bit like Leftovers, where I kind of knew the bones of her. I knew that, quite honestly, when I look at a series character, which is different from a movie or a play, which is closed-ended, with a series, it's like, what's the wound? What's the problem? What's the problem that we can keep returning to, both for plot and also for that emotional juice? And so I knew that about Janice, and I knew this loyalty and this split loyalty and growing up and really learning about sort of police families, which was really interesting. I also knew that I was plot-wise and culturally really connected to Caruso in such an indelible way. And he was always, everything you've heard is true. He was always sort of troublesome. That's where I met my husband, because he was literally the only director who seemed to be able to handle the set. And I was like, that's the father of my children. It was such an intense work environment. We've all been there, but it's like, holy shit, how is everybody going to get out alive? It was so intense. So I would say 3/4 of the way through the first season, Greg Hoblet, who was one of the producer directors, who had become a mentor, really sweet guy. And I'd moved out to, LA to do this happily. But I remember we went out to dinner and he intimated. It's like, we don't quite know what to do with the character, because at that point, again, which is different now and very different streaming, but the series regulars, they might be flawed, like Dennis Sipowicz and stuff, very flawed actually, because it's David Milch, but there's essentially a certain decency to them. And with this woman in the pilot shooting 2 people at point blank range and never doing prison time, they couldn't actually fold her into now it's the Christmas episode. She just was stamped with that.
Right. It was before the anti-hero was something. A
little bit. It also could be a little bit sexist, that the girl had to, she just was such an unusual character. But when I knew that David wasn't going to come back, I was like, yeah, I'm working up. They're going to send us off into the sunset. Although, no. I heard that I wasn't going to come back, and I was sad. But I was already doing movies, and I was like, okay, well, And then over that summer, David sort of did some movies and he wanted $1 million to come, or I don't know how much, but I was like, okay, now I think it's unlikely. But in the storyline, I was actually only sent away for 6 months because I think they wanted to see if they could come back. So not quite to this day, but even up until 5 years ago, I'd see an old fan go why was it more than 6 months? I was like, I must have been really bad in prison. I must have, I know. Didn't seem like it was going to be a long time. And yet, it's been 15 years.
Yeah.
Longer.
Wow.
25.
You were twice Emmy nominated for your role on NYPD Blue. And the show was total water cooler talk at that time. And one of the reasons was that everyone was literally showing their ass on network television, including you in the pilot, which I have to say, I didn't remember. And I was sort of oh, was that totally nerve wracking, and did you use a double or try to use a double?
No, I didn't use a double. It was weirdly not that nerve-wracking. Again, I feel like there'd been more than one play in college where I got naked. I don't know. I feel like I was getting naked all the time. It wasn't that big of a deal, frankly. It was a little bit bigger of a deal for Caruso, who was he felt a little overweight. I remember sort of you're handsome, you look great, And also you're in a very contained set.
Yeah.
It was the doing of it, although I will say that I think a really awesome thing that has happened is these intimacy coordinators. I think in retrospect, I can get very upset at the idea that if you had a fight scene, you wouldn't think about doing it without a stunt coordinator. But intimacy, it's like, you're on your own, girl, you know? And it's like, oh my God, that would have been incredible to have maybe a female going, how you doing? This is what we're looking at. Are you comfortable with that? There was none of that. And I do get a little like grouchy in retrospect. That said, at the time, I felt more confident in some ways than David did. And I just thought like, okay. And like I said, I'd come from like this funky theater group, and we loved the Worcester group. And you're just always like taking your clothes off or doing something weird in front of a lot more people than a set. So it wasn't, this is what happens on film though. It's like, you don't really think about it until it comes out. And then you're like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Franz was the butt I remember, honestly.
Same,
so
yeah.
That was like the one that I remember making headlines. So I'm into the whole cast doing it.
Yep. We all did it.
You mentioned earlier some of the drama that was coming out of the set with David Caruso, and that all made headlines, his stuff with his contract negotiations. How privy were you to that, like, while it was happening? And also, did that experience, was it informative in terms of navigating future contract negotiations, particularly for you and judging Amy?
Not so much with the contract stuff, because I think that came up over the summer, and he just, did movies and wanted more money. But his behavior on set was really, and all jokes aside, I mean, that is where Brad and I first bonded for life, because it was a little bit of a terrible, he was like a tantruming, needy toddler. So that was bad. But I will also say the Bochco company was so afraid of confrontation. And Brad and I talk about this all the time. It's like, Hollywood, it's so rough. It's like, you know what? People are wusses about going like, stop it. Or what do you need? Or what do you, so they wouldn't say anything. And then he would sort of, it literally was somebody looking for limits. And honestly, what happened was, and this is not a story, this is true, Brad came in to direct the 6th episode, I think, and already there was just this really shitty dynamic where a director would come in and David would be sort of like mumbling disrespectfully, and then I was sort of his on-screen girlfriend, so I was sort of his ally. Meanwhile, I'm just like, I just want to get along, but I was sort of, we all have had those working environments where you're sort of into this dynamic and like, oh my God. So Brad came in, and he said, okay, here's the scene. I don't remember what it was. And here's how I thought we could stage it. And we were so already just like, oh, what's David going to say? And he sort of pulled me aside. And he's like, this is bullshit. Blah, 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 blah. And then Brad, honestly, was the first person to say, I'm sorry, did you have an idea? Share it, And then David was like, maybe blah, blah, blah. And Brad's like, that's great. Let's try that. And if it worked. He was so unafraid of this dynamic. And in fact, just like any bully, Caruso was sort of trying to bully the set because he was so, insecure, whatever. And Brad just like popped it. It's like, hello, So Caruso was on bad behavior, but I also think like he needed a firmer hand, Mm-hmm. And I watched that whole thing and, having been a veteran of therapy, and I was like, I see the whole thing. So I will say not so much with contracts, but when I've been in a producer situation, and Judging Amy being the longest and the most, clarity of communication, just not like, what's up, So Danny Futterman, started to, get negative or shadowy. It's like, what do you want? It's like, I have a girlfriend in New York. I was like, thank you. Let's try to make that happen. Real. That's what I learned is like, and listen, I don't like confrontation either. I'm the biggest wuss, but I saw, wow, when you don't have the courage to actually just, speak clearly. The film set is 200 people. I mean, it's a tiny village, and these little terrible dynamics can start to take hold. So I learned a lot about that.
I love that. So on the heels of all of this TV success, your film career explodes. You are in films like Fear and Daylight and Casper and Bye Bye Birdie, and Bye Bye Love.
I wish.
And Michael Mann's crime drama Heat, which received a considerable amount of like press because it was the first time Al Pacino and Robert De Niro actually shared scenes together in a film. And you played Edie, De Niro's graphic designer girlfriend, who has no idea of his double life as a thief. The story goes that you didn't like the script because you thought it was like too bloody and there was no morality, but that Michael Mann was convinced you like that made you perfect to play De Niro's unsuspecting girlfriend. Was that experience intimidating, going in and having to do scene work exclusively with De Niro?
No.
It wasn't.
No, because Michael and I think Bob, Bob really trusted Michael as the director. I don't even know if he was a producer on it. Yeah, Michael's like very mafioso himself. Like once he says yes to you, you are a beloved. You are the character. I mean, Shonda does that too, actually. So you couldn't do wrong, really. And in fact, it was really my first experience of seeing what this medium could do, really. I mean, I think up until then, and Tyne and I used to talk about this all the time. It's like, up until then, I sort of looked down at like theater, but not as good, right? It's like theater where you learn your lines, but you don't actually get a chance to rehearse, which is my favorite thing, right? So it's like, it's like theater, but not as good. And watching De Niro, I remember, like, we had two cameras going the whole time. It was De Niro, so there was no, although today there probably would be, but there wasn't like, we got to get it done. It's like and Michael Mann famously does 60 I mean, you go into a fugue state, you just do so many takes. But the two cameras meant that you didn't have to match, which is really interesting. And then I remember at one point, Bob had like his sides, his script, his mini script in his coat pocket, and you couldn't see it, but he would be like, and at one point, we're acting and he's like, hold on. He looks at the script and the cameras didn't stop. And he puts it back and then we continued. And I remember going like, oh, the gold in this art form is actually just letting yourself be observed. And don't think of it as a performance. It's just, you're just watching me do my shit. Tyne and I used to talk, because she, I don't know how she feels these days, but she would say, I can't quite get there. All I can think about is like, I want to give a performance, right? She would get mad if the crew came in too soon. It's like, I'm not ready to show it, right? And because of that, she was always a little bit at war with the art form itself, which she would admit if she were here. Because the art form itself is like, you're just going to watch me fucking, I am so, the confidence as a good film actor is like, I'm interesting. Whether I'm acting or not, like I am worthy of the cameras being, and that's what Bob, right? I mean, that's, so that was something I absolutely took in with me to Judging Amy. But because I also thought, intuited correctly, you only get that comfortable if you're in front of the cameras a lot. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of us are lucky enough to be, and with Judging Amy, I was. It's like, I'm in front of the camera all the time. And I got more and more and more relaxed. And that's what Bob taught me.
I loved watching you guys wrestle in that scene where you like pull your neck away from him. Like he like tries to get you with your hair and you just like rip your neck away.
Well, that was actually a really funny. So we do that. See, you'll love this story. So I'm a runner, right? I mean, not so much anymore because my knees are really bad. But the first time and Bob was in really good shape. I mean, he was very for him, very aware of food and working out in a way he doesn't always. But anyway, I was a young girl and I was like a runner. So we shot that scene and easily outran him up that hill. And then Michael's like, yeah, you can't run that fast. You can't. I was like, oh, I have to act. He's like, yeah, you have to act. So, Edie 100% could have outrun Neil.
No question. So, we mentioned some of the big blockbusters, but your film work also gravitates to these sort of small character-driven indies, films like Neil LaBute's Your Friends and Neighbors, Fred Skepsi's Words and Pictures, and many collaborations with Rodrigo Garcia, including Nine Lives, The Face of Love, Mother and Child, and Damien.
My personal favorite. Things you can tell just by looking at her.
And what is the genre that we call that?
Like 8 celebrated actresses brought together by something that is revealed in the last 8 minutes.
So, with 5 Emmy nominations, successful TV series, and a whole other career as a producer under your belt, what is it that makes you say yes to a film?
Yeah, usually the collaborators more than the part. Yeah, doing something I haven't done. I mean, I will say, from Leftovers to this really trippy thing I did on Goliath to this really weird, awesome Tell Me Your Secrets, I have finally shed any pathological need to be liked, and I feel like my creativity is much freer now. But with these characters I've been playing, it's like what is the wig? I'm thinking like an English person. And like these parts of myself are emerging. It's like, didn't know that was there.
If you're very into wigs, have you also entered the territory of fake teeth yet? We talked to a lot of actresses about prosthetic teeth and how this is like the new wave.
Yeah, I haven't yet, although I'm excited to. I know, I'm trying to think nothing's coming up that... I guess with Cranston, I could have fake teeth. It's nowhere in the script, but I'm sure he'd really appreciate it. Actually, he's the kind of guy.
So one of our favorite discoveries in looking into your film career was this 1997 Indy, Nevada, where you star as Christy, this mysterious woman running away from her life who ends up in a small desert town that is mostly populated with women. So the cast includes Saffron Burrows, Kirstie Alley, and Kathy Najimy, who asks you to take up work as the local milk woman. I was obsessed. All of the townspeople are desperate to know why you showed up out of nowhere. I'm just going to say, having never seen this movie, it has tons of gay energy. Was there gay energy on set? And also, was it fun to be number one on this shoot with like a bunch of women in the middle of the desert?
Yes and yes. Like lots of gay energy, lots of wild energy. I mean, just like a party. And also we were like in Death Valley in August. People were dropping like flies. I mean, it was so crazy and awesome. And yes, it was wonderful to be number one on the call sheet. And however, there was this problem, which is, so Gary Tisch, who wrote it and directed it, is just a lovely person. This was really I believe his mother in real life dropped out for like 6 months. And she just, I honestly can't remember what was going on in her life, but maybe too many kids too soon. I can't remember. But she left and then she came back. And he was young. I might be messing up all these, but this was his imagining, which is beautiful. Like a female going like, I can't do it. What society has asked me to do, I can't do it. So in the script, she is like, she's so beautiful, the beautiful stranger. Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. Everybody else is dowdy in the town. I was like, you can't cast the other. I mean, I'm not a bad looking person, but it's not like I'm the prettiest of that bunch. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't think it's going to make sense. But all of that aside, it was an amazing, amazing experience. And also, I do remember this one really dear moment where the character, I think it's a flashback, and there's a suicide attempt, and we're in this bathroom, and she, I don't know, cuts herself or pills or something. And Gary, who also is also a cinematographer, although he wasn't shooting the movie, but the bathroom itself, the location shoot, this is why I love filmmaking. The bathroom was really small, and it was a practical location. And so the cinematographer was in there with the camera on the shoulder, female cinematographer actually. But then Gary was far away and couldn't really see, and the video village wasn't working. And so he said, you know what, let me just shoot the scene. So he just kind of followed the action. And I do remember thinking, so many times with filmmaking, it's like the writer is back in LA and the thing, we're all so spread out. And I remember thinking, oh my God, Gary wrote this, he's directing it, he's shooting it, and I'm playing his mother. And it got really holy. It got like, so there are those moments that, and that was just because the practical location was tiny, but that's when you sort of open up to like, all right, let me channel this story and honor this story.
Yeah.
That's so personal.
It's beautiful.
Okay, Amy Brenneman, we're going to let you go in just a few minutes, but this is the part of the show that we call Rapid Fire. This is so we can get everything else in that we need to get out. You can take your time if you need to, but it's Rapid Fire for us because we're going to be even more maniacs than we already are. Okay. We are obsessed with the fact that you get billing as and Amy Brenneman on Private Practice. Did you request that specifically?
Yes.
You seem to be close to the Dalys, but if you had to good son one of them, which is to say save one of them from the edge of a cliff, who would it be, Tim or Tyne?
Tyne. She's a little bit more important to the culture, but anyway, don't tell Timmy I said that.
That's amazing. Okay, so of your two recent series, which had better craft services, Goliath or Tell Me Your Secrets?
God, I don't remember. I feel like Goliath I didn't eat because I was playing a maniac. And Tell Me Your Secrets, we were in the summer in New Orleans. And I feel like if there was a bean dip, you didn't want it because it was like super hot. I don't remember eating a lot on that show either.
Neither.
Okay, who's an actor that you drop everything to see at the theater, even if you know the play is going to be shitty?
I would drop anything to see. Oh, like film or theater? Theater. Audra, for sure.
Yeah. She's the best.
You play an angel in both Casper as the dead mom and in City of Angels in an uncredited cameo. Both of these movies are directed by the aforementioned husband. What is he trying to tell you?
He wants me dead. He wants me dead. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he would say he wants me in everything he does, but I think he wants me dead. But, so far I've outwitted him.
You've worked with him a lot of times, but has he ever offered you a role in something and you're like, thank you, but no thank you?
No. Although I wanted a role in something that he didn't think I was right for. And that was fun times. That was fun times at home. Yeah, we survived, but I don't recommend it.
It sounds terrible.
You started in the 2007 ensemble romantic comedy, The Jane Austen Book Club. Be honest, had you already read her entire oeuvre? And if not, did you read all of them before shooting, or did you just sort of shoot from the hip?
The latter. No, and still no. But I watched some movies. I don't know.
Yeah. You got a handle on it.
Exactly. The general sense.
Yeah. Okay, Fear is a movie that I used to watch at sleepovers with my friends, which is terrifying because upon rewatch, it's all about toxic male rage and violence. It really was not like a sleepover movie. I was very distressed. In the movie, you use a power drill to drill through a man's hand. You call your stepdaughter Reese Witherspoon a slut multiple times. And when your family dog's head gets cut off and thrown through the doggy door, you cover it up with a tea towel. Amy Brenneman, of these three things, what was the most pleasing to do and what was the most disturbing?
Oh my God, I don't even remember calling Reese a slut, but that's
multiple times.
Multiple times.
It would never fly today. You constantly are saying
it. So bad. While I was making it, by the way, I'm like, this is really bad. And then it's a cult favorite. I would say the drill was very upsetting. Although weirdly, once I got the prop under control, oddly satisfying.
Yeah. So you're also deveining shrimp in a scene, which had me thinking, what? And you mentioned earlier, Tyne and the food. Were you okay to do that? Did they say, we're going to have you do this? And you were like, actually, can I have shrimp because that'll give me more business?
I've also descaled a fish on stage once. I do. Well, have you noticed that Brad Pitt always eats in his roles? I mean, this happened 10 or 15 years ago. And it does make eating something, it does make your acting better because your head doesn't have time to go this is terrible. You're terrible. It's fuck you. I got to devein some shrimp. I got things to do. It's not acting.
Technique.
That's right.
Okay, I'm a lesbian. We're lesbian pop culture enthusiasts. And based on our research, you've played a lesbian at least twice on screen. Once in 88 Minutes as Al Pacino's secretary, and once on an episode of Veep where you're the president of Smith College, and you intimate that you and Selena Meyer might have had a Chardonnay-fueled fling in college. Is there a third lesbian performance? And Amy Brenneman, name your top 3 lesbians.
Oh, my top... Well, I'm deep into that Brandi Carlile right now. Yeah, I mean, not physically, but I really like the new album. Yeah. She would be right up there. Name some famous lesbians. Name some, because I'm going to
Cynthia Nixon,
Rosie O'Donnell, Audre Lorde.
Oh, yeah. Rosie O'Donnell would be up there. I've worked with Rosie O'Donnell. Do you remember that on Judging Amy?
I had a totally...
She's a judge. She's sort of a parallel to me, and she has a clerk a lot like Bruce, and we had a great time actually doing that.
I forgot about that.
Oh, and Saffron. Can Saffron, is she gay these days?
I think she identified as bi at one point, but we're going to include her because she was in a long-term relationship with Fiona Shaw.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Fiona Shaw.
Fiona Shaw is right up there. She's wonderful.
That is right up there. There's a lot, huh? Yeah, okay. All right. I'm going to take this under advisement. Yeah, I appreciate this question.
You portray the Queen of Scotland on 3 episodes of the CW series Reign. Previous guest of this show, Megan Follows, told us that Reign was Bridgerton before there was a Bridgerton, in that it tonally walked the line between period drama and camp. How hard was it to walk in on that set, find the tone of the show, and then choose an accent?
My husband did the pilot of that, so I feel like I'd been absorbing Reign for a long time, so I felt like it was a very friendly set, and so I understood the tone. The accent, I'm famous, although British is a little bit easier for me. Although part of me was wouldn't it either be French or Scottish? Like, why would I
Correct.
be British?
They were all doing British.
everyone
Like the
just
King of Spain was English.
I'm always confused about that one. We were years ago in Cornerstone. We were doing a play where we had to have German accents, which is actually kind of a hard accent to have. And mine was so bad that my beloved friend and longtime co-star Chris he kept calling me Woman from Country X. So I always think about that when I have to do an accent. I was like, are you buying it? However, and then I had a corset, and so I showed up, and I'm like, and the wonderful costumer Meredith, she's like, do you want an actual corset? Because sometimes some of the girls actually like to wear them, some of them don't, but it can kind of give you the feeling of it. And I was like, absolutely, I want to go 100% real. Wore the corset for exactly one day. I'm like, I'll act it. I get it. I get it. Like, I don't need to actually do it because they suck.
You have starred opposite Kathy Baker in 4 films. Please name all of them.
Well, things you can tell just by looking at her.
Yeah.
And then 9 Lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we did, I don't know if this would be in there. Oh, and Jane Austen Book Club.
Yeah, 3.
And then we did a pilot. Are you counting the pilot?
Yeah.
Okay. Of ATF?
Yes.
ATF,
okay.
alcohol. Okay. You did it.
Okay, you star as Cameron Diaz's sister/caretaker and things you can tell just by looking at her. On a scale of 1 to 10, how convincing was Cameron Diaz as a blind person?
I think like a good 9. I think she went for it. Yeah, I loved that. I loved being, was that my character lesbian there? Oh no, I hook up with Miguel Sandoval. Yeah.
We weren't sure at the end. I was like, is she going to be the reveal? I was like, is she going to go out and meet a woman? And I was like, no, okay.
Yeah.
Miguel. Callista was the lesbian.
Callista was the lesbian, and with Valeria Golina. Yeah.
Yes. Who we love.
Coming back to me. Yep.
Okay. Amy Brenneman, bear with us. This is very important to me. Your character in the 1995 disaster flick Daylight is a struggling playwright living in a cold water flat that is overrun with rats and roaches. At one point, you try stabbing a rat in your underwear drawer, and just as set decoration, you have a poster for the original Broadway production of Cats on your wall. Does that seem right to you? You're a playwright who has a poster for cats.
I'm an unsuccessful playwright. I think it does make sense. I think I don't know. I know. What was my play about? I never did that. I'm working with some kids now. I'm helping to direct a play at a high school. And like the co-director is like, what did you eat for breakfast and know your character? And I'm like, what is the scene about? Why are you saying that? They're like, really? Are they this simple? I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, one last Daylight question, and then we're letting you free. Okay, one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema is when you're trapped in the tunnel, and there's this huge live wire swinging about, and you take off these hiking boots that are on your feet. Because of the rubber sole, you put one on each hand, and then you try to trap this huge ropey wire with your 2 hands that have shoes on them until the power is cut off. I think about this all of the time. Did you do your own stunts for that scene, and was it an absolute nightmare?
I did do my own stunts for that, and it's really boring. Like that's what it really comes down to, because you'll have, if you look at the schedule for anything, but it's like, okay, this day you're shooting this scene. Like on TV, it's like, oh my God, there's like 5 different really interesting scenes we're going to do tomorrow. There's usually too much, right? How are we going to squeeze it in? With a stunt movie, it's like 4 days on that fucking wire. I was like, I am so, like, it's interesting the first time, maybe the second time. It's like, now we needed to get it from that coverage. But then the best thing about Daylight was, there were many funny things about it, but we shot it in Rome. So we shot at Cinecittà, which was really awesome and interesting and weird. And then we'd, because we were in Italy, we'd stop for a meal that was usually like an hour, and people would go to, I just kind of like sleep in my room or whatever, but there was a nice, it's Italy. So it's not just like a commissary. It's like, there's some linens and there's the thing and da-da-da. So I remember we were getting into like literally where there's going to be explosions, like lots of explosions and, okay, safety. and somebody was in town. I was like, well, let's go to the little Cinecittà dining room. And I go and I see this lovely Italian dude who's the special effects guy. He's like, hello, did not a lot of English, having his Italian lunch with a big bottle of wine. I was like, I know Italians drink wine at lunch, but it's going to be me and water and fire and gas. It just didn't. The optics weren't good. I just was like, I don't know. So yeah, but those stunts would take so long. That was the big.
Well, the good news is you had rubber-soled shoes on your hands the entire time. So
and you know what? If
protected.
I've helped anybody when they've been in a similar predicament, then it was all worth it.
Completely.
Amy Brenneman, this has been a total pleasure and joy. Thanks so much for being on the show with us today.
Thank you for asking me. You guys were a blast. I really appreciate all your love of the whole thing. It comes through.
All right, folks, getting to talk to Amy Brenneman about the scene in which she puts boots on her hands and stops a huge live wire. Like, it looks like the snake from Beetlejuice. It's not like a tiny wire. It's like a fat series of cable cords. I'm going to link in the timestamp. You can watch it. I think it's streaming on HBO Max right now. It is one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema. I can't. I'm going to also see if I can screenshot that picture of her with the Cats poster. Like, I just cannot tell you that Daylight is an underrated action disaster movie. I also have a soft spot for Sylvester Stallone, but getting to hear the details behind her being like, it was terrible, but also like we were shooting in Italy and that was kind of great, but also everybody was drunk the whole time. And if you'll remember, we talked to Sakina Joffrey, who had a small role in the same movie, talking about like she got paid too much for her per diem and like they just said don't say anything about it, and she had like a great time shooting in Italy. So the stories that we get to unveil on this podcast is what makes it all worthwhile. I mean, you did get to ask her about Cameron Diaz being blind.
She was very generous, I thought, to Cameron. I mean, I would love Cameron Diaz. I was just thinking about that's so funny.
I love Cameron Diaz.
Honestly,
this is not shading Cameron
Diaz.
Diaz. She wrote a book all about pee, poop, and sweat. So we love her.
I love her. I would love to talk to her about things you can tell just by looking at her. I'd also love to talk to her about The Holiday, which I watched the other day. As it is the most outrageous performance on film, and I'd love to talk to her. Like it is.
We could do like a full hour on The Holiday.
Truly, like it is a wild performance. Like good. I like that she makes big, weird choices.
She'd be like, "Do you want to talk about Being John Malkovich?" And we'd be like, "Absolutely not." How about Gangs of New York? Please no.
Also, can you believe the reveal that Bruce and Amy were never like together on Judging Amy is because Les Moonves? Like I can believe it because he's disgusting and has been discredited, but also like he is himself is in an interracial relationship with Julie Chen Moonves. So like, what the fuck, you motherfucker? And also just like all of the Tyne Daly juice and also like Dan Futterman juice and hanging out with Kate Walsh and hanging out with Paul Edelstein. I loved it all. Oh my God, Tim Daly, and she was like, we were feeling the kiss. And I was like, ooh, that's
she
like
said
me.
It was a delight. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like titillated by that. Because what a weird thing to
What
think.
if me and you got cast in something and they were like, you guys need to kiss? I mean, we once, do you remember we
used to like kiss as a bit.
Yeah, but
that
like,
was weird.
We used to peck though.
Yeah. No, we've never tongue kissed.
Wasn't there?
Is tonight the night?
Isn't there a time when we played Truth or Dare, Spin the Bottle, like at Pride, and we had to kiss, and we both.
But not like we didn't make out.
We touched tongues.
We touched tongues. Yeah, yeah. I think that's right.
It feels sibling to me,
correct.
Which is like how I would think it would feel for Amy to be kissing Tim Daly, but she said it was a delight.
Well, they're both very attractive people, so I feel like they just didn't know what was there the whole time. Tyne Daly probably saw it coming. Okay, baby cakes. If you know the show, you know that it's the time of the hour. The time is, oh my God, I really am drunk. I'm really drunk. Okay, baby cakes. If you know this show, you know that it's now time for the blind item. That's right. We connect this week's guest to next week's using only women or oh my God, Damien, you got to do it. I'm drunk.
Folks.
I'm officially drunk.
You know what we do on this show. Every week we set up next week's guest in a blind item. So we're going to do that for you right now. And we're not going to use any men. We're only using women and non-binary folk to connect this week's guest to next. This week's guest, Amy Brenneman, was in Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her, that wonderful film that I love and pay homage to, with Cameron Diaz, the aforementioned movie star playing a blind woman opposite Amy Brenneman. Cameron Diaz is also in My Best Friend's Wedding with Julia Roberts, who was in Ben is Back with next week's guest.
When I tell you that this person got very up in Julia Roberts' face in Ben is Back, it was a lot.
I can't wait for it. I'm very excited for it. And I can't wait to see y'all next week. So if you like what we're putting down, please leave that review. And while you're at it, follow us on social media. You can find me at Damian Bellino. I spell Damian with an A. I'm a Damian Bellino, and my co-host here is at Rodeman. That's Rodemanne. You can follow her so that you can see that footage of Amy Brenneman diffusing a wire with 2 rubber boots on her hands.
Might Know Her From is produced by us. That's Damian Bellino and Anne Rodeman. We're 100 episodes in, and we have been doing it ourselves. We couldn't do it without the help of our beautiful consultants over at Grumpy Entertainment. That's Jason Jude Hill and Danielle Sears. And all the editing that you hear on each episode is courtesy of the divine, the delicious, the delectable Danielle Sears.
Thank you, Jason and Danielle. We love you.
Love yous.
We also want to say a special thanks to Gang. Gang provides all the music that you hear, underscoring each and every episode of You Might Know Her From. We love Gang. Thank you so much, Gang, for letting us use your music. You mean the most to us. You can download and stream Gang's music wherever you listen to your music.
And of course, make sure you're checking out those show notes. That's where all of the goodies reside. I'm going to put that Amy Brenneman clip from Private Practice that is surprisingly violent. I'm going to put it in the show notes. That's where you're going to find it, babies. I forgot what it is to record in person, which is to say that I'm really drunk by the end. Like, we did order food, and it did arrive, but I started slurring my words by the end, so...
But y'all like it a little bit, right?
That's where the good stuff resides.